Do you think that it would ever be able to think for itself?
In some ways, they're trying to push this idea of reasoning models now and chain of thought models. So this is where you'll open Gemini or ChatGPT and ask it a question, and before it gives you the answer, if you open up the box, you can see what it's thinking about, as it were. First I've got to do this, then I've got to do this, and so there's some. You could say, in some ways, that is. I wouldn't say it's thinking for itself, but you could say that it is breaking down tasks and working stuff out for itself. What do you mean by thinking for itself? Because we can go deep here. But
that's the thing. I suppose it comes back to the idea of consciousness and soul, and what makes something conscious and what makes something have soul. Also, what makes you know that I'm not just a predictive model that's giving podcast questions that podcasters should.
I've just fallen a little bit more in love with you, because that is my lifelong fascination. When we talk about consciousness, what is consciousness? I've been fascinated by that, and it's not intelligence, because computers are intelligent. I define intelligence as the ability to learn to do something by itself, and that's computers can do that. You give it loads of data, you don't tell it how to do something, it will just teach itself how to do it. It's not even emotions. I think emotions are biological feedback loops. So, we're higher organisms, so we give them names, but basically fear is the thing that stops us from dying.
Yeah.
And we call it fear. Happiness is probably a thing that in a simpler organism is something it realizes it should do again.
Drinking.
And then we've hacked it. Yeah, there are certain things that have hacked. Yeah, we've developed these things too quickly to evolve away from these things. Even jealousy, I would imagine there is. If you think about it, there's a biological reason why we would feel something that we give the name jealousy. So I think AI will develop something like emotions, if we let it, in the future, because it will teach itself, I better not do this again. You can imagine if you put an AI in a robot body and it falls off of the ledge of a building and smashes, the hive mind, the bit of AI that survives that crash because it's in the cloud, will learn not to do that. And so the next robot, or a few after that, because it will probably have quite a few of those incidents before it actually gets it through its thick skull. At some point, a robot will get to near the ledge, and something will go through its neural network that says, better not go any closer. And you could call that fear if you want, if you see what I mean.
But how do you know it's... Because I'm guessing fear is a chemical response. It's almost like maybe adrenaline. Maybe I don't know.
It's all of that, and there will be an equivalent inside a sufficiently complicated AI where signals go round that say, "Stop! Don't go any further. Don't put your hand in that flame."
But how do you know that it's not just calling on past data instead of actually having a fear response?
Well, what's you put your hand in a flame or just go to do it. What are you doing? You're calling on past data, aren't you? But the first time you put your finger in a flame, you don't know any better.
Yeah.
The next time, you blooming well know better. That's how we learn as well.
But it's partially because you feel pain. But I'm guessing that a robot putting his hand in the flame or jumping off a tall
will get damaged. And if you want to call that pain, you imagine a futuristic robot getting damaged. It might not. It might not feel pain in the same way we do, but it will register that it's now damaged and it has to be fixed. And so the numbers that flow around it, you could call that, if you want, call it X pain or something, or pain asterisk. It's not what we feel. I'm not saying that, but what I'm saying is, in a sufficiently advanced AI, there will be equivalents to many of our emotions, and I think. We're probably a bit too arrogant as a species to think only we are capable of this. But this comes back to consciousness, right? So consciousness is not intelligence, it's not emotions in my world, because emotions are as I say,
Yeah.
biological feedback loops.
Responses.
Consciousness is something else. Consciousness is the fact that I'm looking out of my eyes and I'm experiencing this world. There is no reason why this bag of atoms should suddenly become self-aware. And there was actually a test. It's called the Libet test, and it's from many decades ago, where they tried to measure when someone was aware that they had made a decision to do something, right? So it's about pressing a button when they see a certain thing, and they decide to press it. And what they started to measure in their brains is their body had decided to do it half a second before they realized that they had decided to do it.
Right.
Okay, so I hope I explained that well. So what it means is your body's a robot. It's operating on autopilot. It's based on all the sensory stuff and all the past experiences. It's making decisions.
Yeah.
You're only aware of that about half a second later. And so that suggests that your consciousness isn't even making the decisions. It's not driving the bus. It's along for the ride, but your body could very well be a flesh zombie that is doing all this stuff. And you can kind of understand why that is. When you put your finger into the flame, you draw it back pretty quick, don't you?
Yeah.
That's your body reacting before your mind, your consciousness knows
It's like
what's
a
going on.
reflex.
Yeah. And that's what, that kind of reflex is. And so to what you said, I have no idea whether you're a real person or whether you're just a flesh zombie. I have no idea whether you are conscious or whether it's just me. And I can go on for hours here, because why is it humans that are just conscious? Or would you say other animals are conscious as well?
I would say I've got a dog. I would say that he is 100% conscious.
Yeah. Okay. Brilliant. So
He gets
he's
sad.
behaving in a way.
Yeah. He gets happy. He gets sad.
Yeah.
You take him
Would
to
you
the vet.
say
He freaks out.
Would you say that mice are conscious?
Well, mice are quite intelligent. I suppose it's. Yeah, I probably would. Like if you slam if you slam something down on a mouse's tail, it's going to feel pain.
Okay. I mean, again, I'm not saying that that kind of response is necessarily conscious, but I'll go with you. What about a fly?
It's hard because there's nothing for them to show that they are feeling a certain way. Like if I hit if I ran into a deer on the road, you can tell that it's in pain. You want to put it out of its misery. If you swat a fly, there's nothing to.
Yeah,
even if you were to hurt it,
it's not doing things that you recognize. Would you say then that in order to be conscious, you had to do things that we humans would recognize as consciousness? I'm leading you down a path here. Spoiler.
Yes, I would.
Okay, so you're defining consciousness as something that only human-like or mammals maybe can have.
Well, consciousness also comes down to, I suppose, it partially comes down to context as well. So you would need context around certain situations, which I believe that's where AI struggles. So there's like the perception things with AI. It will see a video of someone slicing up chicken, and it will go, this person has a knife and it's slicing up chicken. Whereas I would see that and going, well, they're probably going to cook a meal because they're slicing up chicken, and they've salt and peppered it because they want to add some flavoring. Whereas AI would not
AI
pick
can
that
do that.
up.
No, absolutely can do it.
Do you think?
Seriously. Yeah. There are AI models that what you've described is simple second level. My facial expression is really sneering there. I do apologize. What you've identified there is just second level reasoning. You could do that in text, right? You can give an LLM, person is slicing up a chicken, what is likely to be happening? And it'll easily say it's likely to be cooking a meal.
Sure.
Yeah. So where I'm going with consciousness is, I don't mean to dismiss what you just said.
No,
but
not at all.
I have just dismissed what you said. I'm sorry. I'm on my high horse again because this is a real passion project for me. So like I say, consciousness for me is like the soul. It's like there's something inside me that is experiencing this. I don't think we know where that line is in how simple an organism has to be before it has no consciousness and doesn't experience that, and it's merely a robot. Now we go to AI, right? Maybe the argument is that it's to do with you have to have a certain complexity of a brain to be able to do it. It's the wetware, right? So it's cats can be conscious, but flies can't because they don't have enough neurons in their brain or something.
Right.
The side argument is, does it just fade out or does it immediately switch off at some point, at which point, what's that number? And then we found the secret to consciousness because we found whatever it is that makes consciousness. But anyway, if it's to do with the complexity of the brain, we will at some point make an AI that is more complex than that. We haven't yet. I don't know what the numbers are, but at some point we will make an AI that has more connections than we do in our brain.
So
at that point, is that AI conscious? Does it have a soul?
Or could you say that it's more conscious than us?
Okay, absolutely. The consciousness staircase. Yes. And that ties into the kind of, as organisms get simpler, they're still conscious, but in a way that is too simple for us to understand. And then you get down to the atoms and you say, well, are atoms conscious? And that clearly is ridiculous, but are they having some sort of experience? And where that line is a mystery. But going up the other way, yes, they are more conscious than us, is a fair argument. But at that point, we're making AIs which deserve rights because they actually do feel pain. They're not just experiencing something that is like pain, which stops them doing something. They should have rights. They should have protections because we have created a living soul. I'm sounding incredibly pretentious. I do.
No, not at all. I love it. I think that this what people are terrified of is the fact that they will eventually replace us because they are smart. Like ChatGPT knows way more than me about everything, and I think it's now smarter than the smartest. I'm pretty sure I read that somewhere.
It can pass a lot of these exams. Yeah, ChatGPT is really good at quantum physics apparently because they fine tuned it on that because it obviously looks good.
but that is where the fear comes in, as people. I think we've created something that we don't actually quite understand what it is yet. And I think the fear comes in when people, and I don't agree with, this is just an example, but people might watch Terminator and they go, well, surely, as your paperclip theory suggests, if you say to AI, make the world a better place, and AI goes, who's causing all the wars? Who's causing all the pollution? Who's causing this? Who's causing that?
Yeah.
Who's going to essentially destroy the world? People, right? Gone.
Yeah. Yeah.
That is what scares people.
Absolutely. And I'd say categorically that Terminator, they're brilliant films. I interviewed James Cameron once. He wasn't quite as scary as I've been told he was going to be, but he was still formidable. But Terminator is the wrong thing to be worried about. AI manipulating what we see and controlling what we do see, back to our social media conversation, us trusting AI too much to analyze data, make decisions for us, that's what we should be worried about. So what I think has got to happen soon is once we are all reliant on the large language models that are out there at the moment.
Almost happening.
Once we need them to analyze the data for us and summarize it, once we have stopped being able to write creatively and they're doing it, we're getting this stuff for free at the moment. And yet we know it costs an awful amount of money, huge amount of money. What has every disruptor done? They keep it cheap enough for long enough so that it destroys the old way of doing things, and then they turn up the price. And you think about Spotify came along and destroyed the original way of consuming music. Now we can't live without it. What's happening? The Spotify prices are going up. They were running in hundreds of millions of dollars worth of debt. I told Daniel Ek when I interviewed him, when he launched Spotify, I said, this business model is not going to work. Because I've come from a commercial music radio background. I know that you're going to need about 9 minutes of adverts every hour to pay for this stuff. And he looked at me like I was an idiot, which I clearly was, because I didn't know what happens if you have hundreds of millions of dollars of venture capital backing you for 20 years. And it took, most of that time before Spotify made any money, but now they can turn it up. I'm getting adverts in the middle of my Spotify podcasts, even though I pay for the service so I don't get adverts. Same with Amazon Prime. I'm getting adverts in the middle of my movies, even though I'm paying for it. So they're turning up the price. I think the same is going to happen with AI. I think once we become hooked, we are going to start seeing them monetize it, because they can't not, because it's too expensive. That's what we need to be worried about. If you put an AI in a robot body, it's rubbish. So we're not going to get Terminator anytime soon. And that's just because AI learns by like I said, it's a slow learner, but it just does it really quickly. It needs to run situations millions or billions of times before it learns how to do something. But if you put AI in a robot body, physics means that you can't do that in super fast time. You can't teach a robot how to fall over or not fall over super fast, because actual gravity is acting on it. And you can't flood the world with millions or billions of these training robot bodies. That being said, they're working on simulations now so that they can do it really fast. But it's not Terminator that we should be worried about. It's blooming, can I write this email for you?
Yeah. If you guys enjoyed that clip, please do me a huge favor before you go and head over to our Into the Mind podcast official page, where we have the raw, uncut Into the Mind podcast, and hit that subscribe button. And the more subscribers we get, the more incredible guests we can get on the show. I really appreciate you guys for watching. Thank you so much. And I'll see you all real soon.